Don't be a baby. You just need to stop overreacting. Oh my God, you're so sensitive. Get over it. Just let it go. Why are you like this? Everything is not a level 10. If you've heard some version of this from your parents, your kids, your partners, there's a chance that along with the signs I'm going to discuss today, you are a highly sensitive person. Now, there's been a lot made about this topic, but I cannot emphasize it enough, especially when you may come from a more difficult childhood, a childhood that either didn't recognize your emotional needs, minimized them, disregarded them, told you were weak, or made you feel that you didn't matter because you were too emotional, and or, grew up with a parent or parents who were intense, aggressive, loud, even parents who just were loud when they spoke, or they yelled a lot, or they just went around the world with really no real awareness of themselves, making noise, putting on loud music, clanging and banging and all things like that. You might have been overly affected as a child if you were and are an overly sensitive person. Now, the research shows that about 20% of us in the population have this quality, these qualities, these superpower qualities, I think they are, but they do and can make the world a more difficult place. So about 70% of us are introverts and about 30% of us are extroverts. And this really does come from a sensitive gene and a few other genetic markers that seem to be in alignment with having these qualities. And so you come out of the womb like this. This isn't something that happens to you as a result of your childhood. It is part of who you are. And the way we interact with the world can make a huge difference. And the way the world interacts with us really makes a difference. And so this video is all about the top 7 most researched signs that you are an HSP. Now, it's important to know also that being an empath and being an HSP, while there's a lot of overlap, they are not the same thing. I'll make more videos on that and more on introversion hopefully soon, because I think these topics are so interesting. And also they really do intertwine with if you had a difficult childhood and or relationship issues that you're struggling with. It may be that these qualities also can be more beautiful, but also more challenging. So let's get started and talk about the 7 most common signs that you are a highly sensitive person. But before I do that, I'm Dr. Kim Sage. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I hope you'll consider subscribing and clicking the bell, and that way you'll get notified when I post new videos. Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to sprinkle in a little more research about what it says with HSPs with regard to parenting, sex, and work environments. So stick around to the end for those, all right? So number 1 is that you think too much about everything and everyone. You are in your head a lot. You are thinking about things. You are processing them. Actually, you're a very deep processor. And as a result of this, it can make you struggle to make decisions. It can make you overly conscientious and caring. It can actually make you get bored in shallow conversations, even in your own relationships. And you often have this very intense, creative, rich interior world and imagination. So you are in your head and you tend to think about everything and everyone a lot of the time. In fact, pretty much all of the time. Number 2 is that you feel too much. You are in the feels about everything all of the time. You're often highly empathic. You tend to read people. You tend to be overly aware of their needs and what they're feeling and how they're expressing themselves. And you can't turn this off, right? It's like your emotional radar is just always scanning and picking up on people. And so this combination of your own emotional intensity and their emotional intensity can be difficult. It can set you up to try to be a caretaker and, know what someone else needs and make it right. And at the same time, that's really depleting. But the core of it is you are always in your feelings and you just feel so much in the world that it's really hard to protect yourself sometimes from that, because you just, all those sensitivity triggers are just picking up everything happening in the world, especially around emotions. It makes you a beautiful, caring human being, but at the same time, it can be a lot of emotion to deal with all at once. And along those lines, because you are feeling things so much, we're often deeply moved by music and art and literature. We tend to take all of that on and really feel it in a deep way. And it doesn't matter if it's positive or negative, but we just tend to feel and express and carry those things. And it also makes it difficult for us to deal with conflict. We tend to not want to do that. We tend to want to avoid it. It can make us really sensitive to cruelty and criticism. And it can truly make it hard for us to watch, violent things on television or watch, horror movies, because that lingering violence and negativity and aggression isn't something we can just let go of. And so really these deep feelings affect us in every part of the way we interact with the world and the way the world interacts with us. Number 3 is that you are highly sensitive to subtle changes in your environment, right? So you're really sensitive to things like lighting and sound and texture, if those are shifting or changing. But at the core, we do have this oversensitivity to stimulation, and we're also over-reading and processing it, right? And so anything that has a subtle change, we are very aware of, and it can also be uncomfortable for us if it's a shift that doesn't align well with our sensitivities. Now, as a result of being deep processors and sensitive and all of those things, we tend to get easily overwhelmed. And so we feel flooded at times by all that we're picking up and all that we're feeling. And so stressful situations, chaotic environments, this tendency to notice everything, right? All of that can make us get flooded and feel overwhelmed. So we don't like time pressures. In our perfect world, we have the space and time to breathe. I notice that when I feel that, I start talking even faster when I'm trying to get through videos or, go to work and make videos and take care of my kids. It just kind of gets faster and faster, but it can feel very much like anxiety. In fact, it often is. And this flood of just angsty intensity and or just emotional overwhelm that we truly can't really turn off. Number 5 is that if you are an HSP, you love and crave alone and downtime. This is where you re-regulate, you get yourself back on track emotionally. This is where you feel most at peace and you can be in your head and thinking and feeling about things. And you really do need this downtime to get yourself back on track, especially if you've been, overwhelmed, been in your head too much, been feeling too much. We need this alone time to re-center and ground ourselves. And it really can come from being around, stressful people, stressful environments, having to be around too many people. It does have ties to introversion, like I said, because, 70% of us are introverts. And so all of that social energy sometimes just is too much for us. But I would say even for those who are extroverted, we need that bit of some form of alone time, self-time, downtime to re-regulate emotionally and get ourselves back on track. That's how we really truly feel most at ease and most peaceful in our dreamy sort of auto-regulation world, I think, too. Number 6 is that the research on HSPs shows that we are, as I'm saying, overly stimulated very easily. So whether it's the sound of something, the smell, the taste, the sights, our body pain, things like caffeine and alcohol, all of the research shows that we are just more easily stimulated by those things, right? That kind of circles back to, because we are deep processors, we are taking in sensory shifts. And so all of it is like this sweeping, constant assessment of things. And that can really boil over and be too much for us. And if these are, strong smells, like I'm saying, anything that creates a heightened awareness and sensitivity, we're really picking up on it. And therefore, we can get easily overly stimulated. Number 7 is that we are highly sensitive to shifts in our self-care regimen. And so because we often have a tendency to maybe not eat, we're sort of so far in our heads and doing things, we can get very very hangry. I would say that being hungry is a huge trigger for HSPs. Not getting enough sleep is a huge trigger. Anything that interferes with our sense of grounding ourselves and well-being, from our basic self-care needs all the way up to our higher self-care needs like mindfulness, meditation, quiet time, all of those things really affect us in a very significant way. And so it's not so simple for us to just have a snack. Why are you being so hangry? We really can't help it because we are truly, responding to so many stimuli and cues, and that can make us overwhelmed when our body is depleted and not getting what it needs. All right, now really quickly, the research shows as a bonus here around a few things. So in terms of sex, the research shows that HSPs tend to not like as much variety in intimacy. They kind of are more discerning in their partners because they're more, going to hold back on feeling safe. And so the research shows they're not as likely to sort of jump around with partners. They can get bored a bit easily, like I'm saying, in conversations and intimacy, but at the same time, they're not looking for wild, crazy changes. They are also less likely to regret sexual experiences because of the fact that they're more discerning in who they're intimate with. And they're probably not as likely to ask for what they want because it might feel too sensitive to bring it up. And so if you have a partner like this, it's important to know, and or you are, that maybe working on sharing your needs would be a deeper way to connect with your more authentic self and with your partner. In terms of parenting, the research shows that HSPs tend to describe their parenting environments as more chaotic and stressful than most people, but it also shows that they're accurate in saying that. But at the same time, although they're more sensitive to the stress of parenting, and let's face it, parenting can be really stressful, they're also more connected and more attuned to their kids because they tend to be more emotional people. They're more aware of their kids' emotional needs. Now, they're not perfect, of course, but as opposed to someone who's not sensitive, they're going to be more aware of those things. In fact, it can be that they're overly sensitive to their kids' needs and reading their kids' moods too much. But at the core, I would say that is what they're doing, and there is an upside to that. And lastly, the research on work and HSPs shows that they are more stressed at work. They don't tend to do as well with group work. They tend to work better alone in their own sort of vibe and environment. That supervisors tend to rate them higher, even though they feel more stressed at work. And in general, the more creative and conscientious and sensitive they are, they're going to report more dysregulation at work because work demands sometimes can interfere with all that, depth of processing and needing to have downtime and all of that. At the same time, they can bring really amazing gifts when they're given the space to, express themselves and engage in relationships at work and take themselves into creative ways of thinking. As long as they're honored that way, they can actually bring an extremely wonderful level of gift in terms of work. The research shows that if you also had a difficult childhood and you were an HSP, then you may struggle more, right? Because you have this intenseness in the world and these emotional feelings that don't get met. If you have a skilled caregiver, though, the research shows that skilled parenting or skilled mothering or fathering can help with this sensitivity. And so really what's interesting to me is, well, what happens when we don't have the skilled caregivers and we're in those environments with loud parents and lots of fighting or yelling, or the culture is to be super aggressive and loud, or there's a lot of noise a lot. If you have a bunch of kids and more siblings, it's just louder in a house. And so all that can affect our ability to regulate and navigate. And when you're deprived of that alone time or downtime, I think for kids, let's say in a busy house, it can create anxiety and stress and anger and, emotional blow up kind of situation, and an emotional blow up kind of a thing that I think often can be the result of just being super sensitive. What I think is so beautiful about it is as we go into the world, I know that people who have these qualities bring this beauty and light and dimension and depth to the world. And I think it's important that we appreciate and understand it and find ways to acknowledge and love and support those who are more sensitive instead of making them feel bad about themselves or shaming them or minimizing them. And it does really take a different set of tools to parent if your child is overly sensitive and you are not. So I will post some resources down below. There's a great website with Dr. Elaine Aron that she has created and written the book on the highly sensitive person and this whole amazing concept. And you can take some tests there and quizzes on, the highly sensitive person, the highly sensitive child, all of those things. So thanks for watching. Please stay safe and well. And I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.